Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson, and we're brought to you by Vivid Seats. And of course, if you don't have a RotoWire subscription, use code ROTO15 at checkout for 15% off that RotoWire subscription. This is going to be an awesome episode because we're going to be talking prospects and specifically prospects to pick up in your dynasty leagues, shallow, mid-sized, and deep leagues. We'll work in descending order. And I've got a couple great guests tonight. I've got Taylor Corso and Khal Sonntag. They host the Dynasty Pickup podcast, and they work on the Prospects Live Dynasty team. Taylor, you can follow at Dynasty Pickups, and Khal, you can follow at Sonny, SONNY _108. Both really great follows, and we're all going to go through and nominate a handful of prospects that you guys should be considering picking up in your dynasty leagues. But first, Khal, thanks for coming on the show tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, James. Thanks for having me. It's been a long time that I've been listening to you, so it's kind of cool being on the other end here today.
Awesome. Well, great to have you on the show for the first time. And then Taylor, great to have you back. Really appreciate taking the time.
Yeah, good to be back. Glad we're not talking about Highlander today because my season hasn't been going the best, but happy to be back on here.
Yeah, we will not be talking about any specific leagues. We'll just be talking about the prospects. And like I said, we're going to just kind of go around the horn and throw out some prospects that we think you guys might want to pick up. How about I toss it to you, Khal? Who is the prospect that you maybe is kind of available in the fewest leagues, but for those in some shallow leagues, they might want to consider picking this guy up?
Yeah, so one I'm looking at here is a name that's kind of been grabbing some headlines as of late because he was just recently traded, and that's Yophery Rodriguez. You know, a 19-year-old outfielder in high A right now in Boston's system after being traded over in that Quinn Priester deal. And coming into today, he was having a really good season already. 333, 444, 633 slash. He's got a home run, just 7 Ks, 6 walks, and I see that he's also got a triple off the wall in right center today as well. So he's continued to stay hot here. Now, he might already be rostered in a number of shallower leagues even, but I think because of that trade that I talked about earlier, he's still absolutely worth talking about because his stock, in my opinion, is only going up at this point. Our scouts at P Live give him a 45 grade on the hit tool, 55 power, 50 run, but as we know, Boston's system has been all about the weighted bats lately. So that 55 grade power, even the 45 grade hit tool, I won't be shocked to see those get a bump here in the system. And while, big things were expected out of him last year after a strong showing in the DSL, he disappointed a little bit, but it was an aggressive assignment. He got pushed right to single A, much like the Brewers have done this year with Jesus Mate and Luis Pena. So I think that really speaks to how much they liked him, even though they did trade him away. Again, that breakout didn't really happen as anticipated last year, but I think that, he's still got plenty of value and again, will just be going up. And the big thing to keep an eye on here is the fact that his contact rate is down a little bit to start the year, but when he's making contact, he is doing damage now with 2 doubles, 3 triples, and a homer in 9 games so far, including today. And that home run, I believe, was just yesterday. It was a low and in pitch that he just really yanked over the wall in right center. So he's showing off some of that pop already. At P Live, we have him just outside of our top 100, but I noticed you have him, James, ranked a little bit closer to 250. So I'm really curious to hear what you think about Yophery Rodriguez right now.
Yeah, I thought he was one of a couple really obvious names to nominate right away here, for all the reasons that you laid out. And I wasn't sure exactly, is this a guy that's already rostered in all these leagues? Is this a guy that's still out there in some leagues? But I thought it wasn't a very loud full season debut for him last year. It was just kind of like, is this guy going to be like a 16 homer, 7 steal type of guy when it's all said and done, who's just kind of, hanging around but I mean, it was a very aggressive assignment, like you said. And, if you were patient on him, I think, obviously Boston knew what they were doing going after him, but I also think, I don't think the Brewers regret making that deal necessarily either. Quinn Priester's been quite good for them, so I think it probably helped everyone out. But I 100% agree. I think just based on the hot start, the age, the aggressive assignment and everything, certainly pushing up into that 150, if not close to 100 range at this point, especially with graduations. My guy that I'll throw out there, who I think is probably even more widely rostered than Yophery, just due to his draft pedigree, is Tommy Troy of the Diamondbacks. First round pick, top 15 pick back in 2023, but he was below league average on the whole last season at high A as a 22-year-old. So I'm sure in some shallow leagues, people churn that spot. And, I think, if you've been paying close attention to Tommy Troy, he looked good in the AFL. He finished last year very strong. 4 homers, 9 steals, 822 OPS over his last 33 games last year, but was really injured, was really ineffective early in the season, dragging down his full season numbers. So already got more Ks than walks in his first 50 plate appearances at AA. So I'm sure he's rostered in a bunch of leagues, but those of you that have been rostering Tommy Troy in those leagues, I think you've done well to hang on to him. And I think he is going to eventually make good on that top 15 pick by the D-backs, and probably splits the year between AA and AAA, and could spend a good chunk of next year up in the big leagues. Taylor, what do you got? Who's your shallowest prospect to pick up?
Yeah, this is a guy who maybe a week or two ago might be more in the mid-range bucket, but I think he's gotten enough sort of hype on him, and deservedly so, that now he's in the shower league bucket, and that's Dasan Hill. 19-year-old starting pitcher in the Twins organization, currently at single A, lefty. He's all the way up to 9% rostered on Fantrax right now. 69th overall pick in last year's draft. Got an overslot contract at $2 million. And through just 2 starts of his professional career, 7 1/3 innings, 2.45 ERA, 0.82 WHIP, 46.4% K rate. So he is just carving up single A there. Just a 7.1% walk rate, which is really nice to see on a young pitcher. And he's got a ground ball rate over 50%. So really showing, all the things you want to see in a young pitcher that, had some promise coming into this year's FYPDs, but really kind of fell under the radar. Didn't get drafted a lot of places. We did a Prospects Live FYPD ADP where we gathered data from 15 actual, dynasty leagues, looked at the FYPD data, and he was only drafted in 2 of those 15 leagues. So on the wire in a lot of leagues that even had their FYPDs. But the big thing with him, coming into this spring is that the velo was way up. He sat low 90s last year. Now he's sitting around 96 on his primary pitch, which is his sinker. He's getting tons of whiffs on his secondaries, including his slider, changeup, and curveball. And so far this year, he has a whiff rate over 57%. So just, again, racking up the whiffs. Our scouts over at Prospects Live gave him a 55 fastball, 60 slider, 50 changeup. Didn't grade the curveball, so that might be a new offering this year. But, really the biggest knock on him is just he's a young teenage arm, so there's risk there. And it's the body type. He's 6'5", 165. So he's really got that Tristan McKenzie body type. So you have to hope that he, puts on some muscle, puts on some weight, and that he's not prone to some of the injuries and durability issues like Tristan McKenzie. But everything he's shown on the field has been fantastic so far.
Yeah, that's a great name to bring up. I mean, he's certainly been a sort of more up arrow guy than Kyle and I's nominations, who've been well known. But I mean, I feel like that draft class, like there's just breakout pitchers galore. Like, like if people weren't willing to use roster spots on, like a Ben Hess or a Braylon Doty, even, like they might be out there. Like I picked up Ben Hess in a league where 250 prospects are rostered like this morning. So like it's just there was so many pitchers in that draft. A few guys were just going to kind of slip through the cracks and not get drafted in a bunch of these. So, what do you think, Kyle? You got another name you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I got another arm here with, similar to Dasan Hill, just really loud stuff. And it's, relatively shallow again, not anyone that's going to be a surprise necessarily, but I'm looking at Nolan McLean here. And this really just breaks down to the fact that he is now focusing solely on pitching, right? For a lot of last year, he was trying the two-way thing. And, he was still looking good on the mound. He struggled with the bat. And I just wondered, how much that distraction of trying both sides of the ball maybe hindered him a little bit. But, now you look at what he's done real briefly over 2 starts here. He's got 9 innings, just 1 earned run, but he's got 14 Ks and 3 walks over those 9 innings. And, I mentioned the loud stuff at P Live. Our scouts gave him a 60 grade fastball, 70 on the slider, 55 cutter, and a 30 changeup. The big thing here is that we've got him with 40 command. Now, I'm not as concerned about the 30 grade changeup since he has 3 other offerings that grade out as at least above average. And frankly, he could probably just scrap that pitch entirely, but it is the command that I want to keep an eye on. Now, he has enough stuff that he could probably get away with walking 2 or 3 batters per 9 innings like he's doing right now. But much more than that, he's going to start leaning more heavily into a reliever profile, which I do think he would excel at. But obviously, there's more value if he can stick as a starter. And I think now that he has scrapped the two-way experiment, I think the likelihood of him staying in the rotation and being a starter has just increased exponentially. And I think he's a fantastic add wherever you can find him. And I know that even in a couple of deeper leagues, I've seen him on the wire as early as the start of this year here. So he's, a well-known name, but he is available out there.
Yeah, Nolan McLean sent back to Double-A, not a surprise necessarily, but I feel like, we saw this Brandon Sproat last year, Blade Tidwell last year. They got bumped to Triple-A and it kind of fell off. And obviously the long season for Sproat, and Tidwell's control is worse than McLean's probably and everything. But I do think like him doing this at Double-A, it's awesome. And he should be rostered, like you said, in a bunch of leagues, but it's just like, what's going to happen when he gets to Triple-A? That's kind of, does he become a top 100 guy then? Or does he kind of stay in that sort of mid, top 200 range? I've got a slugger from the NL East that I want to highlight here in a second. But first, let's throw it to a message from our sponsor. Finally, baseball is back this MLB season. Knock it out of the park with Vivid Seats and score great tickets to the biggest games of the year. Every fastball, every home run, and every eye-popping play of your favorite team live and in person. Plus, with Vivid Seats rewards, you earn rewards with every single purchase. Just buy 10 tickets, then cash in your credit toward your free 11th ticket. Talk about an easy win. And here's a pro reward tip. When buying tickets for your whole group, split the bill and make progress towards your free 11th ticket even faster. From behind the dugout to the upper deck, Vivid Seats has great tickets for all the 2025 games that matter to you. Just visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Vivid Seats, experience it live. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions. All right, back here with on the RotoWire Prospect Podcast with Taylor Corso and Kyle Sonntag from Prospects Live. And we're going through a bunch of prospects that you guys should be considering adding in dynasty leagues. As always, I'll put the names and the order of all the prospects in the show notes in case you missed the name on someone we're talking about and want to look down and try to get the spelling or anything like that. I'm going to nominate a guy that I'm sure is rostered in plenty of dynasty leagues, but again, I've been able to pick him up in a few shallower spots so far in season and rostered him in some spots coming into the year, and that's Gabriel Rincones with the Phillies. He's up at Triple-A right now, and he's got by far the lowest strikeout rate of his career. He's got 3 homers. He's got a 139 WRC plus. Rincones has always had really, really monster raw power from the left side, and it's just kind of been a question of, is he going to make enough contact? So far, so good, and he's probably going to be platooned on the strong side, but it's just kind of one of those 30 homer strong side platoon type of profiles. Like it's not amazing, and that there's a reason he was available on the wire in some leagues before the season, but Rincones is looking pretty big league ready to me, and just that power and the lowered strikeout rate, I just love to see it. All right, Kyle, let's throw it back to you really quick. I think Taylor, I think you were muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I was gonna say you sniped me on that one.
Okay.
He was actually one of the next names that I was going to discuss. I want to throw out there. He actually right now has the 9th hardest hit ball in AAA this year at 113.9 miles an hour, and his 109.9 90th EV ranks 11th in AAA. Yeah, he's basically just improved his contact across the board. Huge power, but like you mentioned, there are some platoon concerns there. But Max Kepler's there. If Max Kepler gets hurt or something, like he's going to be the next guy up probably. One other thing to mention, he's not on the 40-man, so that might be a little bit of a barrier for him.
Right. I mean, it would be like they need him type of scenario where he has to come up. But if they do need him, like I do think there's a chance he could hit the ground running. Like it seems like he's 24, like he should be entering his prime. So. Sorry, Kyle, I throw it back to you for a nomination.
Yeah, no problem. I've actually got a very similar player here, but I'm moving over to the NL Central, and I'm looking at Ernesto Martinez Jr. here. This is another big slugger, tons of power, making a ton of contact right now. But I got to one-up you guys just a little bit on the exit velocities here, because last I looked, which was just yesterday, Martinez was 100th percentile. He was top of AAA in average EV, 90th EV, and max EV. I believe his max was 115.5 earlier this year. So Ernesto Martinez Jr. has been absolutely scorching the baseball, but he's also been making just a ton of contact outside of his launch angle sweet spot rate and his overall swing percentage. He does not have a metric. I'm looking at Thomas Nestico's StatCast summaries here, but Martinez on those does not have a metric beyond the LA sweet spot and the zone swing percentage that is below 80th percentile. His contact, his chase rate, everything is just fantastic this year. And, much like Rincones with, a guy like Kepler, if Rhys Hoskins in Milwaukee continues to struggle, now I think he's got a couple home runs on back-to-back nights right now. But if Hoskins struggles, Martinez, who also is not on the 40-man, might be pressed into action for the Brewers here. And similarly, he might end up being a bit of a platoon risk as a big lefty. He does hit left-handed pitching okay, but the quality of contact in particular takes a dip. I think Martinez could be, an absolute steal that you can get for free off the wire right now. And one that, Taylor will attest to, I have grabbed all over the place, and I've been driving the Ernesto Martinez hype train for the better part of the last week here. And, one last thing to say here, I don't necessarily love comps, but when you look at what Martinez Jr. is doing right now, it is really similar to what Yandy Diaz did in his career year in 2023. So I think that while a 330 average with a 936 OPS might be pushing it a little bit for Martinez, because that's what Diaz did in 2023, I don't see 280 with 20-ish home runs being all that far off for a guy with this kind of power making this much contact.
Man, Ernesto Martinez is such a fun nomination here, just because he's been. He's probably been in the RotoWire database longer than anyone will bring up on the show. Like, because he was, we were talking about him when he signed, just because it's a 6'6" guy with this crazy raw power. And the Brewers, like, you can't even say that, or you can't even say he technically could be a quad A guy, because this isn't a repeat of AAA. This is his first experience at AAA. Because he spent all of last year at AA as a 25-year-old. So just so much working in his favor and so much working against him at the same time. Just a great name to bring up there. All right, Taylor, who do you got?
Yeah, next up, I'm going with another kind of FYPD arm in Jonathan Santucci. So this is another lefty, 22 years old in the Mets organization, currently a high A, 46th overall pick in last year's draft, signed for over $2 million. Currently 8% rostered on Fantrax. In 7 2/3 this year, he's got a 3.52 ERA, 1.30 WHIP. That's not going to wow you, but what will is his 33.3% K rate and his 3% walk rate. And that walk rate is huge because when he was in college last year at Duke, his walk rate was 14%. And we know that the Mets have done some work to help improve the control of some of these, pitchers that they're drafting, thinking of like a Brandon Sprode or a Jonah Tong. And the arsenal is good. It's above average mid-90s fastball, tops out at 97, plus slider, above average changeup. Our scouts gave him 40 grade command. So if he's, walking 3% in his first 2 starts, hopefully that means that his command is ticking up. Unfortunately, he's at high A, so we don't have any StatCast data for him, at least not that's publicly available. But everything looks good so far in the performance, 52% ground ball rate. So yeah, he's a guy I'm pretty excited about and picking up wherever he's available.
Yeah, I mean, I actually just picked him up in a league while you were talking because I knew he was out there, and I'd been sort of eyeing him for a few days, and so I just dropped Cooper Ingle for Jonathan Santucci in a league. So love that call out. Really just like a dream team context landing spot for him as well. All right, I've got another arm here, and I've got another 26-year-old, I believe. Brandon Young of the Orioles. He is repeating AAA, unlike Ernesto Martinez, and we might see him up in the big leagues later this week, so I'm sure he's already been scooped up in a bunch of leagues where people are looking for right now pitching help. But Brandon Young, coming into the year, I'm sure was available in a bunch of leagues, and velocity was up in the spring. He's turns 27 in August, repeating AAA, like I said, but the walks are as low as they've been, I believe, in his full season career or close to it, and he's been generating a ton of ground balls this year. So Brandon Young, Orioles, everyone in that rotation gets hurt. So if he pitches well in his big league debut here coming up, might be up for good. So good name for contending teams and a good redraft name for those of you listening. I'll throw it over to you for another one.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Orioles here, and I'm going to go with a bit of a P-Live special because I think this guy has been written about almost half a dozen times in the last week alone. And that is Austin Overn, 21-year-old outfielder currently in high A. I'll mention right off the bat here, he hasn't played since last Thursday. I haven't been able to find an explanation as to why. I don't think he's been put on the injured list yet, so I'm not really sure what's going on here. But he has played 6 games so far. He's got 2 home runs, 4 stolen bases, 8 strikeouts in 6 games, a little bit higher than you'd like to see. I think it's near a 30% K rate. He is swinging and missing, striking out a little bit too much right now. But I want to give a shout out to our really talented scout team, and in particular, our director of pro scouting, Reese White here, because he slid into the group chat at P Live last week and told everyone that he found a prospect who might be the next Christian Campbell and proceeded to tell us about Austin Overn. Now, I think Overn has a bit more of a question mark on his hit tool than Campbell ever did, but Reese made some really compelling cases for Overn, and that case starts with the fact that he is a high-end athlete who actually played wide receiver in his freshman year at USC before committing to baseball full-time. Now, USC, as Reese told us, is a school with a relatively poor track record for developing talent, but Overn landed in a fantastic organization for development in Baltimore. And again, much like Christian Campbell, the Orioles have had Overn make an adjustment early in his pro career to his swing that seems to be paying dividends. Now, again, there's a little bit too much swing and miss. I think that is a little bit bigger problem in Overn's game than it ever was for Campbell. But I do think that Overn is headed in the right direction. And like I said, at P Live, we have really, really liked what we've seen from him so far. Hopefully he gets back on the field soon. because I think he's going to be a fantastic pickup in a lot of, medium to deep leagues. And he's been out there in a lot of those, but he has been getting snapped up relatively quickly here. So he's a name that I think people are going to have to act pretty quickly on.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great name to throw out here in this section, and good to keep the toolsy position players in the mix, because that's what people want, right? Like they don't want to keep throwing out arms and slap hitters and stuff. So that's good. Taylor, do you got a name you want to throw out next?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on talking about this guy, but you mentioned toolsy players, so I got to bring up Henry Bolte. He's a guy who has tons of tools, and contact is not one of the good ones. But this year he's lowered his strikeout rate from 34.7% to just 15% at AA. Making just much better contact. Last year, I think I wrote about him earlier this year, and I think it was like 47% of his games last year he had multiple strikeouts. So far this year, he only has one game with multiple strikeouts. Most of his games are, no strikeouts. So really made a big difference in the strikeout rate this year. And this is a guy who we have as plus power, plus speed. Last year he hit 15 home runs, stole 46 bases in 123 minor league games. We'll see where the contact ends up. We had him at a 40 grade hit tool. I think if he can push that to a 45, he becomes really, really interesting, and big ceiling there. I will say his ground ball rate is up this year, and that's really been an issue for him, is, getting into his plus power is, fixing that. But if he can get the contact situated, then he can, focus on maybe adjusting that launch angle a little bit.
Yeah, I really considered bringing up Bolte, but I know you had some trepidation about it as well. Like, it's just kind of I'd like to see a little bit more of a sample, and like you mentioned the ground ball rate and stuff. But if we look up in 2 weeks and the strikeouts are in kind of like a 20, 22, 24% range or something like that, and it could be pretty exciting. But the ground ball rate, if you got to fix the ground balls and the Ks, like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do. But yeah, premium athlete though. Okay. So this guy, I considered throwing him out a little earlier, but the Fantrax ownership percentage was lower than I expected. But Miguel Ullola, righty with the Astros. He's healthy at AAA now after a shoulder scare in spring training. He only has one walk through 2 starts as he's building back up, and so he hasn't gone through an order twice or anything like that yet. But Ullola is just a really premium arm, and like a lot of Astros starting pitchers before him who've had that sort of reliever risk tag applied, he just needs to kind of fix the strike throwing aspect of things. It's one of the better fastballs at AAA, and the Astros have turned lesser pitchers into pretty solid fantasy arms. So Miguel Ullola, the fact that he's healthy, the fact he's at AAA, if he can kind of keep those walks in check as he gets stretched out a bit, not only could he be a great add in dynasty, but a solid guy later this summer in redraft as well. So another arm, I know those are almost the easiest kind of breakouts or like guys to grab early in the season for me. But you got someone else you want to throw out there, Kyle?
I do, yeah. And it is another arm, and I agree with you 100%. It's just so much easier to see improvements and changes in arms than it is with bats this early in the season. So I do have a few more arms that I'm going to mention here today, but the next one I want to talk about is Khal Stephen, a 22-year-old right-handed pitcher with the Jays. He just threw earlier today. In that start, he went 5 innings, 4 hits, no walks, no runs, and 5 strikeouts. On the year now, he's up to 16 innings in 3 starts, just 1 earned run, 7 hits, 1 walk, and 20 strikeouts. Now, this is a guy that they just drafted in the 2nd round. He was a college draftee, so he probably should be performing well in single A, which is where he's at right now. But the Jays tend to keep their arms in Dunedin at the start of the year, the arms they really like at least, rather than subject them to the cold weather in Vancouver. And it's worth noting that Trey Savage is also in single A with him right now, but I don't think either of them are going to be there for long. Now with Stephen, our scouts give him a 55 grade on the fastball, 50 slider and changeup, 45 on the curve, and 50 command. The fastball is pretty unique because it's just 93 miles an hour on average, but he's also averaging 20 inches of IVB right now, which is probably a big reason why it is dominating single A pitching. Ride like that with two other average or better offerings, strong command. That's the kind of thing that, single A hitters just don't see very often. So he really should be dominating at the level. I'm going to be really curious to see how things go as he works his way up the system, especially considering the fact that the Jays haven't had a great recent track record with development or even keeping arms healthy in the first place. But I think if Stephen can continue what he's doing, hopefully add, a tick or two to that fastball, if that's, from 93 to up to 95 with 19, 20 inches of IVB, this is an arm that I think is going to climb really quickly through the system and through prospect rankings.
Yeah, you mentioned Savage. I think they've both made 2 starts prior to today, and Stephen had twice as many Ks and half as many walks. So very, very important to point out that there's a reason they're still at single A. It's not that the Jays were like, these guys can't handle high A hitters. It's just kind of a location, geographical aspect of things. And touched on that in the most recent Farm Futures as well. Roto 15 for 15% off if you want to check that out. So let's see. Taylor, you want me to go or you want to go?
Go for it.
Okay, so Kyle Karros is third baseman in the Rockies system, and surely you recognize his last name, one of multiple Karros brothers in pro ball, but he's known for his excellent defense at third base, and he's having a great offensive start to the year, and he's at Double-A Hartford, neutral hitting environment, especially by Rockies affiliate standards. Has the highest walk rate and lowest strikeout rate he's ever had at a full season affiliate thus far. Also has the highest fly ball and pull rates of his career thus far. And, as a plus defending third baseman, righty, there's a chance here for an everyday third baseman in Coors Field who makes decent contact and, I don't know, like 18 to 22 homers, something like that. Like, I don't know. Like, it's not the sexiest profile, but he's rostered by some pretty smart dynasty owners in a lot of my deeper leagues. So, like, don't hesitate to grab him just because you haven't heard a bunch of people talking about him. Like, he's pretty close to the majors. He does a lot of important stuff really well, and he's having a really good start to the season. So Kyle Karros of the Rockies is a guy to consider. All right. I got another one if anyone wants me to go or if anyone wants to go next.
I got a couple more. So I got another arm in the Astros organization, 20 years old at high A currently, and that's Anderson Brito. So far this year in 2 outings, 7 2/3 innings pitched, no earned runs, which is nice to see. Has a 40% K rate and a 10% walk rate. So obviously you don't like to see the walk rate look like that, but this is a guy who's a pretty interesting year last year. Started out in the DSL, got moved to complex ball midseason, which you rarely ever see, then got moved from complex to single A. He's got a big time fastball. Our scouts gave him a 60 grade on the fastball, 94 to 96, tops out at, I think, close to 100 miles an hour, has a average slider, and has got a developing cutter and changeup. So really, want to see some advancement with the command this year, but so far so good at single A this year. And like you mentioned, the Astros have been known to do some pretty good things with some unheralded pitchers. So pretty interested in Anderson Brito.
Yeah, another guy that I almost we were talking, Kyle and I were talking before the show, and just how tough it was to kind of narrow down our lists. Brito definitely kind of fit the bill for me. And at high A, like if he can just stay healthy and just kind of keep doing this at high A, like that's just gonna be really exciting. Like I'm kind of just waiting for him to get hurt and have this turn into like a 60 inning season or something. But like he could finish the year as like a borderline top 100 guy, Anderson Brito in the Astros system there. I'll throw a quick one out here. Like I mentioned Ben Hess earlier. Of all the guys from the 2024 draft, the college starters that got assigned to high A, I would say Ben Hess has had the second best, or is the second best arm to roster behind Chase Burns. He struck out 9 in his first 2 starts at high A. All right, I will throw it back to Kyle for one.
Yeah, I've got another arm here, and one that I'm not really sure if he fits into this medium bucket or if he's kind of the start of my deep bucket, because when I started looking into him, there was little to no hype out there. But just earlier today, Baseball America started hyping up Brandon Clarke. They said that despite the fact that he went as late as he did, I believe it was the 5th round this past year, in his debut outing, he's made 2 starts now so far, but they said in his debut outing, he looked more like a first-round talent. Today, he went just 2 1/3 innings, but they seem to have him on a pretty strict pitch count right now. He got pulled at 50 pitches. In those 2 starts overall, though, 6 1/3 innings, just 1 earned run, 2 hits, 1 walk. All of those runs and base runners came today because he was perfect through 4 in his pro debut, and he's also got 11 strikeouts on the season. He's got a bit of an interesting path to the pros, which is why I think the Red Sox were able to grab him in the 5th and why he hasn't really gotten a ton of hype just yet, because he was a pretty well-regarded arm out of high school back in 2019, but he had Tommy John surgery, ended up going to college instead of being drafted, went to Alabama where he never ended up pitching because he was recovering from TJ, then went to a junior college, and was committed to South Carolina before the Red Sox took him in the 5th round, signed him for $400,000. Now, he is built like a prototypical pitcher. He's 6'4", he's 220, and he's got a big fastball. He topped out at 99 in his debut. He's got 2 distinct breaking balls, one in the mid to upper 80s with a ton of glove side break and a low 80s offering with a little more depth to it as well. I've heard there's a changeup in the mix that flashes some solid potential, but legs behind right now. I've yet to actually see that offering. But as I said, when I started my prep for this podcast, there was little to no hype out there for Brandon Clarke. Baseball America has now, started pumping the tires here. So he's really, really interesting. He's been available in a lot of deeper leagues, but just this past kind of, 12 to 24 hours here, I've seen him get snagged in a ton of leagues. So I think he's still going to be available in a number of them. His roster rate on Fantrax is still relatively low, but the time to grab him is now because the hype train is starting to get going here.
Hype train around a Red Sox pitching prospect? Am I hearing this right? Okay, so that was really exciting hearing you talk about Brandon Clarke. The only thing really working against him is just the age and the assignment, but like it was important to kind of lay out his background. With pitchers, age is less important, I think, than with hitters. At least that's how I've always approached it. But the Red Sox obviously know what they're doing with pitching. Great name to throw out there, Brandon Clarke. I'm just going to throw out another name really quick just before I fall behind here, because obviously I think this guy is probably rostered in more leagues than Brandon Clarke. But just Bishop Letson of the Brewers. Like the Brewers have so many interesting pitchers. I even struggle with which guys to roster at times. But Letson, he's always kind of given me like, is his arm going to break type of vibes, but he's healthy right now. He's got arguably the best extension of any pitching prospect in the minors, which allows the low 90s fastball to play up, and just everything he throws just moves like crazy. So just it's a ceiling play with Bishop Letson. He's at high A right now. I think they're going to be very careful with him. I think it's just going to be, 60 innings at high A, maybe 30 innings at double A to close the year or something like that. But just the type of upside that's certainly worth rostering, and probably should have mentioned him sooner. Taylor, do you want to throw a name out?
Yeah, I'm going to go pretty deep here in a fun name. I'm curious to get your thoughts on him. You mentioned a pitcher whose arm could break. Well, what about one whose arm has continuously broken? And that's Matt Allan, 23-year-old starting pitcher, Mets organization, righty, currently at single A. And the interesting thing about Matt Allan is obviously the backstory, right? Was a pick in the 2019 draft, was a prep pick, fell to the third round due to signability concerns, immediately became one of the Mets' top pitching prospects, and hasn't pitched in a professional game until this year, going back to August of 2019 was his last professional game. So debuted, pitched 10 1/3 innings his first year, making his way to low A back when that level still existed. And then, he showed excellent stuff in 2019, had some, control concerns. And then, 2020, obviously COVID hit. They thought highly enough of him to put him at the alternate site, which not every, prospect got that sort of opportunity. Then after the lost 2020 season, he had Tommy John in 2021, a cleanup procedure in 2022, and then a UCL revision surgery in 2023. So after all of that, Matt Allan somehow made his way back to a baseball field, professional baseball field this year, and has looked outstanding. In 6 1/3, no earned runs, 0.79 whip, 32% K rate, just a 4% walk rate, which is good from a guy who, pre all the surgeries had some control issues. The stuff is still there. He's averaging 96 on his four-seamer. Reports were that he was up to 99 this spring. His secondary pitch is a cutter that garners a ton of whiffs. He also has a pretty good-looking curveball as well. The reason he's falling this far is obviously there is a ton of injury risk here. Like, this is a guy who, is probably one injury away from his career being over, and it's kind of a miracle that his career is still going on after 3 arm surgeries. But it's a really fun name to roster, and one who, could build his stock back. I mean, obviously he's at single A right now. He's got a long way to go to make a major league impact, and his arm's going to have to hold together for that. But this is the kind of guy I like to roster in fantasy and kind of root for because of sort of the perseverance that he's shown to this point.
Yeah, Matt Allan. I remember those videos of, was that from the alternate side or was that from like Fall Instructs or something, where he looked like kind of number 1 pitching prospect in baseball caliber. Yeah, he's not even 24 yet. And
yeah.
So, it's there's a lot of ifs and stuff with Matt Allan, but like you said, if you're looking for just a premium talent who might be available in a deeper league, you could do a lot worse. And I mean, if he's healthy and effective across 3 or 4 more starts, by then he'll be up to high A. By then he'll be rostered in a bunch of leagues. So good to bring him up right now. I've got another pitching prospect from the other New York team, Carlos Lagrange, who I did mention in that notable minor league assignment article. Lagrange is just a ridiculously hard throwing righty in the Yankees system who, I would almost preseason, I would have given him a like Dylan Betances comp if he had like a grade better command, but Lagrange's command just seemed so bad to me that it was a stretch to even project him as a high leverage reliever. So it was incredibly notable to me that the Yankees bumped him from single A to high A this year after he walked almost a batter per inning at single A last year as a 21-year-old. So it was clear to me that they either knew that he had gotten better at something in the offseason, or that they were just going to be really quick to pull the plug on him as a starter and move him to the bullpen. And so far, he's given up, a bunch of runs, but 16 Ks and 3 walks in 9 innings for Lagrange. And I think he gave up most of those runs in his first start. Just keep an eye on Lagrange and grab him now if you're in a deep enough league, because if he's somehow gotten, his command from probably like 30 grade before the season to 40 grade even, like, then I think he's a top 400 prospect at least, and could just keep climbing very, very high because it's just a premium arm talent and very questionable command. But that assignment to high A was notable, and the fact that he's only walked 3 batters in 9 innings is notable as well. All right, who wants to throw a name out next?
I'll go again. I got a couple more for you. I'll stick with the pitching side of things though, and a profile that's just about as different from Lagrange as you can get is Manuel Rodriguez in the Brewers system. A system that is, we talked about it earlier, well known for their development really across the board, but you love anytime we see a pitcher in their system. He's got solid numbers to start the year here, 10 innings, 2.7 ERA, 1.2 whip, a 36.6% K rate, and a 7.3% walk rate. That walk rate is actually quite high for him. Rodriguez is a control artist who, the fastball isn't going to wow you. It's a low 90s offering right now, topping out around 92. But as far as I can tell, that is already up a tick from last year's max. And the pitch does show some good characteristics to it and has some above average potential if he can continue to add velo. He's currently listed at 6'2", 175, 19 years old. So there's definitely a room for him to put on some good weight and hopefully add some velo here as well. Because if he can do that and continue with the control that he's shown in past years, because again, I think the 7.3% walk rate would be the highest of his career by at least a couple of ticks. I think that this is a guy that could really rise. And what caught my attention was his first start of the year. He went 4 1/3 scoreless innings with 11 Ks while getting 23 total whiffs on 70 pitches. So if he can do that in high A as a 19-year-old with a 92, a low 90s fastball topping out at 92, I'm really excited about what he could be if that velo can tick up.
Yeah, that's an awesome name to throw out there, Manuel Rodriguez with the Brewers. And nice thing about the Brewers is if you're ever interested in picking up one of their pitching prospects, you could just search their name into Twitter, and the team development account will have an amazing video directly behind the pitcher just showing their best start. So very easy to do your quick homework on any Brewers pitching prospects. I'll throw out a couple more. Asbel Gonzalez is a, you could say slap hitter maybe, but he's a 19-year-old in the Royals system. RotoWire great Jason Collette saw him live the other day and was compelled enough to send me a note about him. He's stolen 15 bases in 10 games. He's running absolutely wild at single A right now. And he has more walks than strikeouts. I think he's got like a 95% contact rate, Asbel Gonzalez right now. He's hitting more balls to the opposite field than I'd like, but he doesn't have an untenable ground ball rate. And he's just 19. So just, we've seen some kind of bat to ball freaks like Chandler Simpson, Luis Arias, Stephen Kwan, guys like that, just kind of rise up. And Asbel Gonzalez, he's age appropriate, 19 at single A, a young 19. He's gonna be 19 all season. So and he's right-handed, 6'2", 170. So kind of like a discount version of like Jason Churio almost. So there's one. And then a favorite of mine, Paul Bonzagni in the Rangers system. Upper 90s fastball, just ridiculous movement on the fastball. Plus slider, questionable third pitch, but he's got a 68% ground ball rate through 2 starts, I think, Bonzagni. He's already on my top 400, but nobody cared that I put him on my top 400 because like no one's rostering him on Fantrax. But I think Bonzagni is going to get the bump to AA here very soon. There's reliever risk. and he's probably going to need a third pitch, but just love the fastball and love how dominant Bonzagni's been in the early going. I've got two more kind of scrubbier hitters to throw out there, but if any of you guys want to empty your notes, you can.
I got one guy left, so I'm gonna go.
Okay. Great.
So mine is AJ Ewing. This is a guy who was kind of a deep FYPD sleeper last year. Got off to a good start at complex ball. 20-year-old outfielder in the Mets organization, repeating single A this year. Listed at 5'11", 160, hits lefty, but like I said, got off to a hot start in complex last year, and then really struggled upon being promoted to single A. Kind of an across the board profile, some power, some speed, but really the hit tool and the contact were holding him back. But this year he looks to have made some changes and really starting to address some of those issues so far. Slashing 424, 500, 636. Gotta love small samples. 1 home run, 6 stolen bases, 15% walk rate, just a 12.5% K rate. And his K rate last year, I think across both levels was 28.5%. So definitely a huge improvement there. And comparing, his sort of underlying metrics to last year, he's not only making far better contact, but he's gone from posting below average marks in whiff rate, zone contact rate, and strikeout rate to actually being above average at the level this year in those regards. And he's also making way better quality of contact. His average EV is up 3 miles an hour. His 90th percentile EV is up 1.5 miles, and his max EV is up almost a full mile an hour. So kind of putting together all the things that you want to see. Barrel rate, hard hit rates improved. The ground ball rate is drastically reduced. And it's not just this year. He actually made some changes towards kind of midway through his single A performance last year and really finished the season out strong. In his final 17 games last year, Ewing slashed 328, 453, 525 with 3 home runs, an 18.7% walk rate, and just a 13.3% K rate. So the stuff that he's doing this year with the improved contact, he showed that at the end of last year. There were reports that he was focusing, with his hitting coach to, make changes to get to more contact. And he started doing that last year, has continued that into this year. He's a good defender. He's been playing a lot of center field this year. Was playing kind of a combination center field and second base last year, but looks like he's fully outfield this year. And obviously he's repeating single A. He's 20 years old, so he's not being challenged enough. But I would anticipate he sees a pretty quick promotion to, I believe it's Brooklyn is the high A team there. And if he continues to perform, he's going to, move up lists pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, shouts to friend of the show, Alex Jensen, who is a huge AJ Ewing backer. And Alex's love for George Lombard has really gotten proven right so far this season too. So shouts to Alex. I'll throw out my last 2 hitters. These are the types of guys where if I were putting out like a top 400 today, I'd be, probably slotting these guys in like the back 30 spots. Romeo Sanabria, first baseman in the Padres system. He's at AA. He's not walking that much at all, but he's got an elite hard hit rate, at least per the RotoWire data, 43.3%. And he's cut his strikeout rate by 10% already this season. Again, he's not walking much, but where he's hitting the balls is pretty impressive so far. And Sanabria is not too old for the level per se, even as a first baseman. And then Yerlin Confidan, a 22-year-old outfielder at high A in the Red system, always has had interesting power. I think he's been on and off the top 400 over the past few years, but 112 mile an hour homer already. Approach has been trending up steadily. He finished last year pretty strong in the second half as well. He is a little bit old for high A, Yerlin Confidan, but just interesting power prospect. I mean, it's tough to find guys with legit power and a potentially legit approach on the wire, and I think Confidan fits the bill. Does that cover it for us, you guys, or anyone got anything they got to?
I do have one more for you, actually, and he kind of fits into that low rostership, high A with legit power potential mold that you were just talking about there. I'm looking at Alfonsin Rosario of the Cleveland Guardians right now. He's just 2% rostered on Fantrax. Coming into today, 6 games, 227, 346, 409 slash, nothing spectacular. 1 home run, 2 steals. But he does have 2 more doubles in today's action, so that slash isn't fully updated with those in there. But I'm not overly concerned with those numbers at this point. What I am looking at are the strikeouts and the contact. He's struck out just 3 times so far this year. And that, to me, is a huge step in the right direction because there's a ton of raw power potential here. But the major question mark with him is around the hit tool and whether or not he's going to make enough contact. Now, he was traded to Cleveland in the offseason, and that's really what put him on my radar because, as I said, he's had control issues throughout his young career, or sorry, not control, contact issues throughout his young career here so far. So while the slash line, the surface numbers don't jump off the page at you right now, what caught my attention and is catching my attention right now is the fact that coming into today, he had just an 11.5% K rate, a 75% contact rate, and a 22.6% called plus swinging strike rate in the early goings. Now, the marks aren't necessarily anything special outside of that 11.5% K rate. That's pretty solid, but when you consider that he's yet to post a contact rate above 60% at any level, he's at 75% coming into today, and this would be his best CSW rate by nearly 10%. It definitely catches my attention for someone that I think has enough power to hit, 25 plus home runs if he even has just a 45 grade hit tool. So I think the move to Cleveland gives him a much better chance to reach his potential. And the early goings of what we're seeing here in his new organization are really promising.
Yeah. I think we closed on a high note there because same thing. Like when Rosario was in the Cubs system, it was very easy to just kind of look at the flaws and say, this probably isn't going to work out. But then whenever a guy, especially kind of around that age, like late teens, early 20s, gets traded to like a smart org and they've got interesting tools, you assume that the smart org saw something that they wanted to go in and like correct or fix, right? So, and I think this is a really good opportunity, especially in deep leagues, because it's only 6 games. He's got a 222 BABIP. He's only hit 1 home run. Like, if he had hit 3 home runs and was hitting 285 right now, he would already be scooped up in your deep leagues. And I would argue that's probably just based on just luck that he's hitting what he's hitting right now. So great name to throw out there, Alfonsin Rosario, new member of the Guardians farm system. This has been awesome, guys. How about I throw it to you first, Taylor, and you can let people know where they can follow you and find your stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having us, James. You can follow me at Dynasty Pickups on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can catch our podcast, Dynasty Baseball Pickups, comes out usually Sunday mornings every week. We talk about latest news, transactions, trades, and then obviously give you some pickup and drop recommendations. And then, you can follow my written work at Prospects Live, where I have a weekly article series called Dynasty Baseball Pickups as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor. And Kyle.
Yeah, again, thank you very much for having me on, for having us on. It's been a blast. You can find me at Sunny_108 on Twitter X, and Sunny108 on Blue Sky. And just like Taylor, you can find me on our podcast every weekend. I've got my written article coming out every weekend. Taylor's is midweek. So we've got, upwards of 10 players that we are recommending on a weekly basis. We talk about a handful of them on the podcast. And, outside of that, just trying to be more active on X and on Blue Sky. So please, give me a follow there, interact with me, give me a reason to continue being active, because I'm really trying to be a little bit more out there on those social media platforms. That's been a struggle for me personally, but something I'm trying to work on.
Well, you definitely, you should have more followers than you do. At SONNY_108, as you said, Sonny's always throwing out great observations. check the receipts. Good stuff in there. And same for Taylor at Dynasty Pickups. This has been great, guys. Really appreciate you taking the evening to talk prospects with me. And this has been the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by Vivid Seats.